Hi everyone!
Welcome to the AMSA Anatomy Show with your hosts, Ms. Tebow and Ms. Abu Samra.
So we're trying something a little different for this unit. Each time there's a new lesson, you'll watch it at home or in DS if you can use a Chromebook, and you're going to fill in the notes as you go. You'll be able to pause at any point if you need to. Then in class, we'll do classwork and activities. During this time, you'll be able to ask us questions if there's something that you want more clarity on. So here we go!
So you're due now. So take a few minutes and in your head, try to think about the following questions to get us warmed up. What is anatomy? And why do you think you should learn anatomy? Try to come up with 3 reasons why you think you should learn anatomy. And then the third thing is list as many body systems as you can. So get out a piece of paper and write down what is anatomy. And you can stop and write this down if you need to. What is anatomy? Why do you think you should learn anatomy? And list as many body systems or organ systems as you can think of. And there's no real complete answer. We're going to talk about it all in class.
And feel free to pause the video while you come up with your answers.
All right, so the study of anatomy. What is anatomy? When we think of anatomy, we usually think of it in conjunction with physiology. So anatomy, we think about the structure of something. What is it made of? So we think of like the structure of a building. It's made of wood, it's made of metal, it's made of glass. It's put together in a certain way, right? The wood and metal and glass aren't just piled in the middle of the room because that would not work very well. So anatomy, we think of the structure. What is the body made of? What are the different parts and how are they put together? And when we think of physiology, we think of how do these parts function? How do they work independently? How do they interact with other organs? And how do they interact with the whole body to make you function? So why should you learn anatomy? Couple good reasons. One is if you plan on going into the medical field. So if you plan on being a doctor or a nurse or a physical therapist or a massage therapist, anything to do with the human body and health would be good reasons to really learn anatomy. I would really want somebody who is taking care of my health to be like super confident about their knowledge of anatomy. Another reason is if you plan on going to the doctor. So we all go to the doctor, and the more you know about anatomy, the better questions you can ask your doctor, the more you can understand what they're telling you. So that's a really useful thing. If you own a human body, and we all do, so you can consider this class your owner's manual for yourself. It's also really fun to learn anatomy. Sometimes it's gross, sometimes it's super interesting, but it applies to all of us, so it's really relevant. And the last reason is because you have to.
How to best learn anatomy? Everyone learns a little bit differently, and of course everyone's going to learn anatomy a little bit differently, but just like with anything else, visualize. Imagine how things work. As we go through each body system, think about what's happening in your own body. Keep the big picture in mind. How are the different parts working together, right? A lot is happening in your body right now. Think about how each of those parts are working together to keep you as a whole person alive. There is going to be lots of memorization. Flashcards are always your friend. Study illustrations, charts, animations. We're going to give you lots of pictures. The book has lots and lots of pictures. And of course, you can find stuff online. And remember, form follows function. So what does that mean? Form follows function. So Ms. Tebow was mentioning before that the structure of the building is made out of things like wood and steel and glass, right? And the function of the building is to keep you safe, keep you dry, right? The function of that is going to be because of the form, right? The wood above your head is going to keep you dry. The glass is going to let in light while still protecting you.
Right? And you wouldn't want to have windows made out of wood.
Yeah.
Right? So they have to be made of a certain thing and put together in a certain way. So form follows function. This is something you're going to hear in biology like your whole life. One thing we really want to kind of frame this whole unit with is respect. Now, we're going to be talking about things that might be a little bit gross or might be a little bit personal or might be a little bit uncomfortable for people in some ways. And that's okay. We have to have a safe place to be able to talk about things and to be able to talk about things in a really respectful way and in a scientific way. So we just kind of want to set that out at the get-go, that that's sort of a general rule. And it is a rule all the time anyway, but we just want to kind of reiterate that's super duper important, especially when we talk about anatomy. All right, here we go. Body organization and homeostasis. So homeostasis has to do with order and balance in the human body, so we'll talk about all that. All right, here's your essential questions for this section. What are the levels of organization in the human body? What are the different body systems or organ systems in the human body? How do they all work together? What is homeostasis and why is it important? Here's our key terms. So levels of organization in the body, cell. So the levels of organization are cell, tissue, organ system, and organism. But let's break those down a little bit more. When we look at cells, we're talking about everything we've already learned about cells. Cell membranes, nucleus, cytoplasm, all the organelles that we've already gone over. Tissues, so things like muscle tissue, nervous tissue, connective tissue, epithelial tissue, and then organs, things like kidneys, liver, skin, and so on. We'll talk about these a lot more as we go forward. And then organ systems, we got a lot of organ systems we're going to talk about. Skeletal system, muscular system, integumentary system, which is your skin, digestive system, circulatory system, respiratory system, excretory system, immune system, nervous system, and reproductive system. Another key term is homeostasis and stress. Lots of stuff we're going to do this section.
So we talked about this briefly before, but we're going to look at these different levels of organization. So we've talked about cells for over a half a year now, right? Hopefully we know a little bit about the structure of a cell. We do have different types of cells in our bodies. So something like the one shown here is a bone cell, also called an osteocyte. So a bunch of bone cells all together, all doing the same thing, are going to make up bone tissue. So a tissue is just the same type of cell all doing the same thing. A bunch of tissues all working together are going to make up an organ. So in this case, a bone. Right? A bunch of bones all working together to do the same thing are going to make up the organ system. So in this case, it's going to be the skeletal system. And then once you get all of your organ systems all working together to keep you alive, you end up with the organism.
And that could be a human, it could be a frog, it could be
a tree.
Could be a tree. But in our case, we're going to be talking about humans. But later on next year, we're going to be talking about animals. And a lot of what we learn in human anatomy can be applied to animal anatomy too. All right, here's just another diagram that talks about the levels of organization in the human body, but it goes a little bit further. It talks about chemical level, cellular level, tissue level, organ system, and organism.
So again, we have talked about cells quite a lot. But remember, we had those terms structure and function, right? So the structure is what it is, what it's made of. So the basic unit of structure in the human body is the cell, right? And the cell has structure as well. We've talked about the cell membrane, the nucleus, the cytoplasm, all of those different parts all working together to form that one big cell. Similarly, we've got a bunch of little cells all working together to keep us alive. And then the function, what do they do? How do those cells keep us alive? They grow, they digest our food, they're getting rid of our waste, they're helping us reproduce, they're helping us use energy, right? So all of these things all working together, and the cell is at the base of that. It is the basic unit of structure and function.
Okay, I just want to back up a little bit. The books that we're going to be using is the anatomy book for this next section, for this next half of the year. These books are a series of 5 books, and they sort of stand alone. They're designed to stand alone. So in the beginning of every book, they're going to give you some information that might seem like review from things we did in the beginning of the year or things you guys did last year, and that's okay. The review is not going to hurt anybody, and these, as I said, these books are designed to stand alone. So in the beginning, there's always a little stuff that's repetitive, and that's all right. So let's talk about tissues. So tissues are a group of cells that are all the same kind of cell or similar cells that perform one function. So it's like a team. They're working together to do one job. And there's 4 types of tissues that we're going to be talking about. Muscular tissue. So muscular tissue can be voluntary muscle or involuntary muscle. We have voluntary muscles attached to our skeletons. So voluntary means that we decide that it's going to move and it moves. Involuntary means it's happening on a subconscious level. It's happening without us thinking about it. So our diaphragm moves when we are breathing, so that our heart is an involuntary muscle. So luckily we don't have to think about that. It just works without any thought on our part. So muscle tissue, voluntary and involuntary. And we also have other types too, which we'll get to later on. Nervous tissue. This is tissue that sends electrical signals throughout your body. So your brain is an example of nervous tissue, your spinal cord, all your nerves. So we'll be talking about that in more detail too. Connective tissue would be things like bone and cartilage, ligaments, things like that. Connective tissue. Epithelial tissue, again, your skin. Skin has a lot of fun words. Integumentary system, epithelial tissue. So skin, inside our body and outside our body. So that's kind of weird, inside our body. But if you think about it, your skin covers your body, and then like at your mouth, it doesn't just stop at your mouth, right? It wraps around and goes inside and lines your digestive tract all the way down. So here's another diagram of the 4 different tissue types. And you can see in 3 of these anyway, you can see a nucleus. So all these are cells. The tissues are made of cells, and they have all the same organelles that we talked about in the beginning of the year, but they're just structured in a special way to do their special jobs.
So organs. So once you take a bunch of different tissues that are all working together, you end up with an organ. So one organ might have a bunch of different tissue types in it, but they're all going to be working together, and they're going to perform a specific job. They're going to be a little bit more complex than tissues, right? Like I said, you can have a bunch of different tissue types all doing the same thing in an organ. But it's going to be part of an organ system, so it contributes to kind of a bigger picture. So if you think about your large intestine, right, it's going to be made of lots of different types of tissues. You're going to have epithelial tissue, like Ms. Tebow just said. We've got epithelial tissue lining every part of our body. We're going to have muscular tissue to keep everything moving through your digestive tract, right? Everything all working together to make this one big organ. And then that one organ is part of the larger digestive system that has a larger job to it, right? But we have all different types of organs that we're going to talk about this year. So things like the heart, which is composed of all 4 different types of tissue. So take a minute to think about that and try to think about where in the heart those 4 different types of tissue are going to be.
Okay, so let's think about the list of body systems that you came up with in your Do Now. How many were you able to think of? Do you know the functions of each of those body systems? So take a minute and look at your list and see if you can stop the video here for a minute and see if you can come up with a job that each of those organ systems do, each of those body systems do. Okay, you back now? Okay. So an organ system is a group of organs that work together to perform a major body function, a major life function. And here's our list, and we're going to go through them, just an introduction one by one, and then we're going to dive into each one of them a little bit more as we go on later on. So a group of organs that work together to perform a major function: skeletal system, muscular system, integumentary system, digestive system, circulatory system, respiratory system, excretory system and urinary system, nervous system, reproductive system, the endocrine system, and the immune system.
All right, the skeletal system. So this is going to be all of your bones, right? We all have a skeleton inside of us. This is going to have a bunch of really important jobs. So not only does it support our body, right? We wouldn't be able to stand up without the bones holding us up. It also helps protect our body. So think about your ribs. They're protecting some of your most vital organs, right? Your heart and your lungs are inside there. Same with your skull, right? Your skull is super, super important to protect your brain.
All right, muscular system, this is all about movement. So the muscular system helps us move in the world. It helps us do all the things we do. Walk down the hall, go to PE, eat your dinner. Everything you do, your muscles help you do. But not only does it help you move in the world, but it helps things move inside your body. So like think about your food. Okay, when you swallow your food, you have muscles inside your digestive tract that help to squish the food down and move that food through your body. Your blood vessels have muscles that help to move the blood through as well. So muscular system's all about movement inside and out.
The integumentary system. So again, this is the skin. We do get a lot of fun words for skin. So it helps cover us, right? Helps protect our body. If we, get a scratch, it would be a lot worse if we didn't have our skin there to protect us, right? Then we'd just be tearing muscles or tearing other tissues that are inside.
Ouch.
Right? That wouldn't be good.
Mm-mm.
It holds everything in, right? If you didn't have your skin, you'd just be a pile of organs.
That would be gross.
Ugh. It helps to maintain homeostasis. So think about things like temperature, right? Our skin is going to be really, really helpful in keeping our temperature the same, right? If we get too hot, our skin is going to sweat and help cool us down. It also helps excrete waste. We get rid of a lot of stuff through sweat, not just water and not just salt. We get rid of a lot of other stuff too, which we'll talk about later. We've got our sense of touch through our skin, right? If we didn't have our skin and the nerves in our skin, we wouldn't be able to feel anything. And not only do we have skin, our integumentary system also includes things like our hair and nails, which are going to help with a lot of that stuff.
Okay, our digestive system. Oh, this is my favorite, I think. It's hard to pick a favorite, but digestive system helps us break down the food that we eat and helps us kind of mush it up in our mouths and process it as it goes down our digestive system. And then it also helps us absorb the nutrients that are in those foods.
Circulatory system. So this is going to transport things inside of your body. So we talk about oxygenated blood as kind of one of the main things, right? All of your cells need oxygen. We talked at length about cellular respiration and how we need that oxygen in our cells. But our circulatory system moves a lot more around too, things like hormones. Once we perform that cellular respiration, we need to get the waste products out, right? So the carbon dioxide, really anything else that needs to move around in our bodies, it's going to hitch a ride with the blood.
Our nervous system. All right, so our nervous system is all about those messages going from our brain, coming in from the environment, getting processed in the brain, and then our nervous system tells us what to do with those messages. So it gathers information from our environment through our sense of touch, through our sense of hearing, through our sense of smell and taste and sight. Those messages go to our brain and controls what our body does. And our nervous system controls our 5 senses as well.
Respiratory system. So on a much larger scale than cellular respiration, we are still talking about oxygen and carbon dioxide. So this is gas exchange in our entire bodies, right? So we need to take in oxygen so that we can use it in cellular respiration. And then when we produce that carbon dioxide, we need to get rid of it as a waste product. So this is what our respiratory system is going to do.
And the reproductive system, this is the body system that's responsible for making new little people and carrying on our species.
And the endocrine system. So this is going to be passing signals around the body by using chemicals. In this case, we're talking about hormones. So it might control different processes. It might let the brain know that something is happening. It might control different levels of things in our blood. right? So if any of you guys have heard of like insulin, that controls how much sugar is in your blood, right? So lots and lots and lots of different stuff controlled by hormones in our bodies.
All right, our immune system. This is our system that fights diseases and keeps us healthy. And to have a strong immune system, it's really important to take care of your body and eat healthy foods and exercise and drink a lot of water and wash your hands. You know, if the flu and colds and things are going around school, wash your hands a lot so you do your best to not get these diseases. So our immune system has all different levels. So we have our skin as the first line of defense, and then there's all kinds of specialized cells that help us fight things off.
All right, the excretory system. So this is getting rid of all the wastes in our body. So think kidneys, right? We get rid of a lot of stuff in our urine. So our kidneys are going to help filter out the blood and get rid of everything in there that we don't want in our bodies, and then it's going to help us flush it out of our bodies so that we don't have anything building up that we don't want in there.
Okay, so all these organ systems or body systems work together, and they really do work together. So if you think of one body system, you can probably think about how other body systems work with that body system to help you function. And these body systems all work together to help us maintain homeostasis too. Homeostasis has to do with the balance of the internal fluid environment in our bodies.
Yeah. And we've talked about homeostasis a little bit last year. We're going to go a lot more in depth this year. So it's that relative constancy. We want the internal environment, our internal fluid environment, to be constant, right? So homeo means same. We want everything to stay the same. And stasis means standing, right? So we want everything to stay kind of the same. We want that balance. We want that stability.
So all our different organ systems work together to help us maintain homeostasis. So think about, we are what's known as warm-blooded. It's not really a term that's used anymore, but we keep a constant body temperature, not unlike a fish, that its body temperature is going to change with the environment that it's in. So it takes a lot of work for our body to do that, to stay the same temperature. So if we are cold, our bodies will shiver and try to generate some heat by shivering. We actually have hair that its function used to be to keep us warm, but it doesn't really do much for us anymore. It's a vestigial structure. If we're hot, we sweat, and then the moisture in our sweat helps us to cool by evaporative cooling. We also can do things behaviorally, just like put on a jacket or take off a jacket. So homeostasis is helping to keep the internal fluid environment constant. You can read this next slide on your own. Just some extra information in this one as well. And you can think of homeostasis as or the body as being like a fishbowl. So if you were to change the internal environment of a fishbowl, the fish wouldn't survive. So you can draw some analogies with the fishbowl and the human body and think about the jobs that these things do. So the water in the fishbowl would be like the body fluid in our bodies that keep our internal environment stable. The bowl would be like the skin, which is the barrier to the outside world, and so on. So you can look at this list on your own, and everything working together keeps our bodies, our relative environmental conditions in our bodies stable. So there are things that will disrupt homeostasis, like stress. And sometimes stress can be a good thing, and sometimes it can be a not good thing, as we all know. So stress is the reaction of the body to potentially threatening, challenging, or disturbing events. So take a minute and write down a couple things that cause you stress. You can stop the video for a second and write down some things that might cause you stress. And what would be an example of a good stress? So think about changes that happen in our body to maintain equilibrium when we exercise. So exercise is actually a form of stress. And we think of it as being a really good thing, which it is. And it's funny because we think of stress as being a bad thing all the time, but it's not always a bad thing. So when you exercise, your heart beats faster because you're trying to get in more oxygen. Your breathing increases. Your mitochondria, remember those little guys? They want more oxygen, and you're trying to breathe more and get more oxygen into those mitochondria to give you energy. Our endocrine system is producing adrenaline. That gives us a really quick burst of energy. Our muscles are working harder. Our circulatory system is bringing more oxygenated blood to our systems. Our heart is pumping even faster. If you put your hand on your heart when you're exercising, you can feel it. And our cells might even begin to do what's called lactic acid fermentation, if you remember that, as they run out of oxygen. And that's what makes your muscles sore. So exercise is a form of stress, but it's not a bad form of stress.
So how do people respond to stress? So think about some of the things that you do to respond to that stress in your lives, right? A lot of them are probably not going to be great for you, but there are some healthy ways.
What are some unhealthy things, Ms. Abelstamer? What are some unhealthy things that people would do to
Well, I know
deal with
I stress eat, and that is never a good thing.
Yeah, that happens to me too from time to time, especially ice cream.
Yeah.
Oh boy, I could go for some right now. So other unhealthy things that people might do to deal with stress, and they might not even be aware that these are things that are helping them, or they think they're helping them deal with stress. Things like alcohol and drugs and things like that.
Yeah.
You know, that's really never a good idea. What are some other unhealthy things?
Just staying up late at night.
Yeah.
Kind of avoiding whatever
stuff like
is
binge
making you
watching too much stuff and avoiding your responsibilities. But healthy ways to deal with stress would be things like we said before, exercise. When you exercise, after you're done, you usually kind of feel a sense of calm, and you get all that kind of anxious energy out of your system, and that's always a great thing. Taking a walk in nature. I love doing that. That's always a good thing to deal with stress.
Yeah. Find some way to just clear your mind. If it's something like homework that's stressing you out, make a list, look at your agenda, see what you have to do, and find a plan for how to do it. Because if you have a plan, it's going to be a lot less stressful than if you just have a ton of stuff.
It can get overwhelming, yeah. So I heard a little phrase one time that was, how do you eat an elephant? And the answer is one bite at a time. So when you have something that's so huge and you don't know even where to start, you just start chipping away at it bit by bit, and eventually you've done it. So those are a few ideas to help you deal with stress. Meditation, conversation with a friend, listening to something that's funny. Humor always helps you deal with stress.
Yeah.
So anyway. Okay, so that's all for this lesson. So we've gone over the body systems. We've talked about the 4 tissue types. We've talked about the relationship between the form of something and the job, the function, the job that it does. We've talked about homeostasis. Did I miss anything?
I don't think so.
Okay, well that's it for today. Thanks for watching. So if you've had a chance to fill in your notes, bring that into class tomorrow, and you can always go back and review any parts of this lesson if you need to go back and fill something in again.
Yep.
So thanks for watching.
Yeah, thank you.
Bye.